Trigger warning. In this episode, we discuss sensitive topics including drug use, alcoholism, domestic violence, child predators, child sexual abuse material, rape, and other sensitive topics. Okay. Hello, and welcome back to Sorry for Trauma Dumping. I'm your host, Alex, and today I'm joined with a special guest. Today, her name is Bailee. Bailee, you can go ahead and share your story with us.
Hello. So, hopefully I will be concise and not jump all around like a squirrel because I tend to do that, but I'm sure it will come around and make sense at some point. I think today I would like to just share a little bit about my past in the modeling industry and some of the things that came along with it. There was a lot of trauma with that. I would say in my childhood, all I ever wanted was my dad to be around. He wasn't. He wrote a letter that I actually recepted to my now stepmom saying he wished me and my brother never were born. So growing up, I was always I was very quiet, kept everything to myself. Anyone hurt my feelings, kept it to myself. I just took the whole world on as a child myself and wouldn't ever talk to anybody. But now that I'm older, I can kind of see some of these patterns and why. But I spent most of my adolescence trying to get validation from men. So my first couple of relationships were not good relationships. At 15, I got into a relationship with a heroin addict who very unstable, a lot of physical, mental abuse, drugs. That's when I kind of 8th grade is when I kind of started dabbling in that. And in 8th grade is actually when I moved to be with my dad. I chased a boy. This guy in 8th grade summer or 7th going into 8th grade. I met this guy. He was in a band. I went to go visit I had gone to visit my dad for the first time in 5 years. Hadn't talked to him, hadn't seen him. Went there that summer, met this boy, came back to Arizona, decided I want to go back for Christmas, and then I never came back. I said, Mom, I'm staying here because I didn't get to see that boy while I was there on Christmas. So I was very upset. So I stayed. I literally in 8th grade said, Mom, I'm staying here in Minnesota. Sorry, that part. My dad's in Minnesota, my mom's Arizona.
Okay.
So I stayed. It's probably a big regret in my life because I went from being this outgoing, happy, bubbly kid to I started smoking weed. I started drinking. I snuck out every single night. I started stealing. I wasn't really I'd get my period and I'd be like, Dad, I need tampons or pads, and he would get the samples from the gym or whatever, and I'm like, I can't. These are round cardboard. There's no way. So I started stealing things I needed, and then it got to the point of stealing things I just wanted. And I did that for a while. And right off the bat, my drinking, I was blacked out the first time I drank. And that continuously happened. There was a time also when I was in 8th grade that I got so drunk at a wedding, one of my cousin's weddings. I went in some guy's Corvette or something, and my cousin came running out and ripped the guy out, and he had to go to the hospital. So that was just things that would follow my drinking in 8th grade. It progressively got worse. I met this abusive ex at 15 at church, and at 15 is also when I started modeling. But at this point, I was already getting blackout drunk every chance I could. The night before I had an audition with an agency to see if they wanted to sign me, I had passed out in the rocks at someone's house, was throwing up all over myself. They had to carry me to the car. Somehow the next morning I woke up and tried to get an agency. Did not get that agency. So I kept trying. I sent my pictures in. Finally, an agency got back to me. I sent the most embarrassing pictures I think anyone could possibly send to an agency. Normally you send clean, no makeup, a tank top, jeans, whatever. I put a vest on, a fedora. I had an apple. I thought I was doing something with those pictures, but no.
Was this early 2000s? So
yeah, it was very, very Tumblr. Very Tumblr.
Okay.
I thought I was so artsy. So somehow they gave me a call back, and from there on out, I was traveling the world modeling.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it has good things and bad things. A lot of good came from it. I had a lot of experience, but a lot of bad. And so every 3 months, I would kind of go to a different market. So I started in Arizona, I lived in New York, then I went to Florida or Miami, then I went back to New York, then I lived in Greece, Spain, Italy, Germany, LA. And that was all in the span of 15 to 23.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, and the thing is, like in my early teens, when I first started, the amount of predatory shoots that I've been on and that my agency sent me on is alarming. Like I would end up in a swim, like, oh hey, let's do some artsy pictures after the job is done, and like, just can you take your top off? Is that fine? Yeah, I don't know. I'm a 16-year-old who has daddy issues, so anything was fine. And I
Right.
would constantly get in trouble with my agency for it. But like, I'm also underage, and you're sending me these places. Like, nothing was
That
ever
was
vetted. So
that was one thing I was going to ask. Like when you went to all these places, were you supervised by a parent or a guardian, or you were just by yourself, like with your agency?
Not even them. Like, so I would sometimes have 17 castings a day, and I would be solely responsible to get to those castings and meet with those directors, whatever they were. For instance, one time in Greece, I was sent to literally a sex shop
Oh
for a
my
casting.
gosh.
And I was kind of helpless because like I'm gonna call and tattle to my, because you get a new agency, but you always have your mother agency. So your mother agency is like your base. So I would call them with any issues. They like didn't believe me. I'm like, there's literally sex toys and this. They didn't
Yeah.
believe me. So that's just like something, those types of things that would happen. But I was responsible for all of it. And there's promoters who get paid to sit outside castings and tell you, hey, we're going to go here for dinner, here for the after party, here, everything's paid for. Don't worry. You're 16. Who cares? Because they get paid by a girl to go to these clubs.
Okay.
Um, and so I got super caught up in that. I already was blacking out before I even entered this industry. And I remember first night I touched down in New York, I was already doing coke. An example of some of the models apartments, like for instance, when I lived in Miami, it was with 6 other male models and me in a 2-bedroom, and they were like older.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, so you just never knew. You'd get a plane ticket. Hey, this is your new agency. Go there for 3 months. Cool. Like another model apartment when I lived in Hamburg was with a like 6-year-old cokehead in his own personal apartment. Like it was just me and him. Like
Right.
weird. So in between
Isn't
all of this,
no one thought that that like was like that's not illegal at all?
I didn't really even think of anything of it at the time. And
Right.
now,
Yeah.
even still thinking about it, I'm like, it gets weirder and weirder the more I think about it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, no, there was never any restrictions. There was never anyone watching over me at shoots. There was nobody. Like, if I did bad, I'd hear about it. And
Right.
that's it. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
then this entire time, I was still in a relationship with this heroin addict that I met at church who he would steal from me. He like beat me. He spit on me. Got me like doing like hardcore drugs, and I always held on to that. Like I would go travel and just want to come home to come see him, and then I ended up moving to LA because he was in prison, and I was like, when he gets out, he's gonna want to live in California. Like just delusional,
Hmm.
completely delusional. Um, and that just kept progressing. Like I Another horrible example was when I lived in Athens, I got involved with the wrong guy. I got involved with the Greek mafia, which I
Oh,
found out after.
right.
Um, I was all over the news. For going to a party on a ship and being American, I was literally blasted over the news nonstop saying disrespectful American. Some people said I was a sex worker. Some people, I got all these names and I had to hide out. But he's the one who sold the pictures of me on the. It's a confusing story. I don't know if I'm missing anything because it's weird. It doesn't make any sense. So there was
Hmm.
private pictures of me on the ship on my Facebook. It was
Okay.
already a big deal, this party, because it was on a historical Greek battleship, and a model and actor were having the reception on there, and it was like, no, no. And then I went as a model at the party, and then the captain of the ship gave me a tour downstairs and took all these pictures in like the museum part, and those were on my private Facebook, and the Greek mafia guy sold those to the news. And so the captain was fired. They like recorded my voice because the Greek mafia guy's girlfriend was also, she called me and said, hey, if you get any reporters calling you, it's because me, I'm in the news. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. the guy's talking to me, and then casually he's starting to be like, "Who let you take pictures on the sailor's bed?" or "Who let you blah blah blah?" And I said it was the captain. They recorded all of that, and the captain got fired, and like it was kind of just a mind like I'm still to this day like I don't know what
Right.
that was about at
Were
all. But
you
like
still underage at that time, or were you like 18 or
I
older at that time?
18 at most.
18 at most? Okay.
Yeah, 18 at most for sure.
So
Yeah,
you're
and
still like super young, like you were very, I wouldn't want to say naive, but like in a
no, I
sense, like
was naive.
you were naive, so you didn't know necessarily like the do's and don'ts of doing stuff, especially with not having any kind of like supervision. You were just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
And that's literally, they'd be like, "Oh, go to Greece tomorrow." Okay. Like I had no, but so I should mention at 15, I was prescribed a high dose of Xanax. And that also was some of my addiction tied into. And I'm very thankful. Like the amount of Xanax and alcohol I mixed on a daily basis is, to this day, I'm like, how I'm alive, I don't know. But I think having that Xanax kind of helped me to just like, whatever, I'll do whatever, who cares?
Right,
But then I'd be withdrawn because I'd take them all and that'd cause another problem. And it was all a big spiral for me. Uh, Towards the end, I was showing up to jobs drunk, high, whatever the case was. They'd send pictures to my agency. My agency would be like, "What the F? You went to a casting like that?" Yeah. I saw no problem. I saw zero
right,
problems. Everybody else was the problem at this point in my life. And it's hard to like wish I saw it sooner, even though people were like, "Bailee, you are shooting yourself in the foot." But I also didn't have the right like guardians. Like
right,
I was doing what felt good. I was trying to get validation from everybody,
right.
and I wasn't getting that. Yeah, and at 23 is when I was dropped by my first agency, and then shortly after that I got another agency, and then they dropped me, and then this was at 23. I moved back to Arizona and I started nannying for a family, and they were really awesome, but my agency kept calling me like, "You need to go here." Like I was surprised they still were wanting to work with me, honestly, and I wish I would have listened more to that. Because they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna go to Paris. You're all these places that want you right now." And I was just so focused on being in Arizona for like
Right,
that dumb boyfriend. And
right,
I just one day never heard from them again. And uh, the next 10, 12 years, I spiraled very hard into addiction. After that, like I could not believe what I'd thrown away. I could not handle any of the trauma. I actually just started trauma therapy 3 months ago, and it is the hardest thing I've ever done. Like
yeah,
I operated on disassociation level for I don't even know how long, for so long. And now I'm like de-thawing. Like I always say that I'm like the woolly mammoths in the like ice blocks, and it's like
hmm,
I'm slowly de-thawing, and those first emotions that are coming up I'm just angry. And
right.
I'm mostly angry. I have a lot of anger in me that I never really had before. It
Do
was a
you
hard
feel
realization.
Do you feel just your experience in the modeling industry and what you've gone through, do you feel like your story is a common one where like young girls are getting these contracts and are taken advantage of and like there's not someone to look after their well-being to make sure they're making
Yeah,
good decisions?
I saw this happen a lot, and for a while I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, how could she do that?" Like there's girls that would be sent home like when I first was starting. I'm like, "How could she do that? Oh my gosh, so silly. Like that's crazy. That would never be me."
Hmm.
And that was me. I was extremely delusional and extremely everybody else is the problem. But I did see that happen
Right.
to a few people, and I'm sure it happens at a lot more alarming rate than I realize even. Because there's so many different agencies. It's crazy. There just really needs to be, I don't know if checks and balances is the right word for that, but there needs to be more protocols. Like girls would show up with their mom, but like everyone would be kind of like she showed up with her
Their
mom. You know
mom.
what I mean?
Well, I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like even for like child actors and stuff like that, they at least have some sort of protocol on like shoots and, how many hours they can work a day. Like a parent always has to be around,
Mhm.
or and I feel like just what you're describing, it was like there was like no one looking out for you. It was like the Wild West. Like,
Yeah. That same guy, Gus, he drugged and raped me for 3 days and videotaped it and showed it to the models, all of the models that were at the models apartment. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry
I had
that
like
happened to
cigarette
you.
burns. I know, I totally just skipped over that part. I don't know. I just
It's
remembered,
okay.
like,
It kind of
oh,
happens when
happening.
you're talking and you're like, "Oh yeah, this totally happened." I
Yeah.
forgot about
Yeah.
that in there.
Like, how was that yeah. So and then after that, he would somehow hack into all of like my Facebooks, my emails for like 2 years after that and block me out. And then he would like write cap or post like, I'm a selfish bee. I only care about my, like all this stuff and like terrorize me for years after that. But like,
It almost
yeah.
sounds like you were trafficked in a way too. Like, yes, you were working, but like with the experience that you went through, that is very like sex trafficking, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like activities and things that happen.
Mhm. That
That
makes
is
sense, honestly. Like that is kind of like, and I've been so desensitized to it for so long. Like there's literally my pictures topless when I was like 16, 17, and I was just like, I'm not mad about that because I still don't really care. I really don't. But like I'm mad that I was taken advantage of. Like that wasn't
yes.
on my terms, and that was because I felt like I had to. And
Hmm.
I was looking for validation in
Yes.
everything. And I was getting in fights at like every time I would come home, like I would make sure I got to come home for like a couple of months because all I wanted to do was hang out with that guy who was horrible to me. And I did that for 8 years. I was with him.
Yeah.
Um, and I just now, within the last like couple of years, have realized how disgusting and how I like just beyond grossed out I am that I was ever in a relationship with someone like that. And
Yes.
that's like I like kind of like that feeling. Like I never thought I would be there, and then to be like, oh my gosh, what were you ever thinking?
Yes.
Is cool.
I feel like finally waking up and like realizing like, oh my God, I went through some shit and that shit like that I think about it was really cringy and I like let that happen because I didn't know any better and now that I'm older
Exactly.
and I know from it, I was like I was in a lot of dangerous situations or like I was in a lot of like situations where no one was looking out for my well-being. So like
Yeah.
your experiences that you're explaining is completely valid with the way you would feel that way. You were young, naive, you had no one looking out for your best interest. So of course you were putting this in these dangerous areas of your life and now that you think about it you're like, "Whoa." Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. You said it perfectly with that. But also when we're talking about realizing, you know that Kylie Jenner quote where she's like, "This is the year of like realizing things," or whatever
Mhm.
she says, like something so like that's what
Yeah.
that reminded me of. I'm
Yeah.
realizing things now, but it makes sense. Like it makes sense.
Yes.
But yeah.
Do you feel like going through therapy and really like uncovering things that has happened to you, do you feel like this is going to like heal some wounds that are still very much like raw in yourself?
Yes. It has been the hardest thing I think I've ever done. I don't know that I would have started it if I knew what it all entailed of like just such ups and downs. But to be quite frank, I think they also misdiagnosed me for a very, very, very long time. And I just went on mood stabilizers for the first time. And I'm like, who? I always hear people talk about like antidepressants and when they take them, how much it changed. I took
Yes.
every single antidepressant. There's not only thing I ever noticed was the side effects. Never had any good from it. I took this one. This one actually works relatively quickly. This is who I am. It's so
Yeah.
weird. It's such a weird feeling. Like, oh my gosh, like I can get out of bed without like, I was having, since I started trauma therapy, I would wake up so angry. I like smash my keyboard. I just like, I could not, I would just hated that I was awake. Hated that I was awake and I had to do things. Hated that I was awake, have to think about things. And ever since I started that, I'm like, I definitely was misdiagnosed for
Yes. And that
20 years
and
or
that
something.
and that
Like,
happens a lot too. You would be surprised how many misdiagnoses there are, and like when people actually are getting the help they need and on the proper medication, how you can just wake up one day and be like, this is like real life. This is how you're supposed to act when you're not like mentally unstable.
it literally has blown my mind, literally, because I've never nothing ever happened with antidepressants because I wasn't depressed.
Right.
It wasn't that. It was like no wonder that's not working. Um, so the medications that's been important for me too.
Yeah.
And it's been hard. Like ever since I got sober, it I always feel bad, like, oh, you shouldn't take medication, you should be this or that. But no, it's not even a little bit true for me. If I did not find this medication, I don't know that I would be sober. I don't know if I'd be here because the last couple of months had been the hardest thing in my life. And then this last couple, 3-ish weeks, I think, is when I started it. So much better.
Yeah.
I had no, and I was never an angry person. I'm not. And then to have these angry outbursts was terrifying. Like, I'm like, who are you? Like,
Right.
I don't know you.
What
And I
what
never.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I would always. I never want to go to. I never wanted to go to sleep because I didn't want to wake up and build. I'd have to build myself back up each day. Like I would start off there and have to just slowly build myself back, and it was miserable. So now
Yeah.
the fact that at 7 o'clock my alarm went off this morning and I was like out of bed, like, what? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's for me.
Uh, what
Well,
was that final like moment to you that you're like, yes, I need to go to therapy? Like, is there something that finally like kicked in? You were like, yes, this is something I need to do in my life in order to feel I need to get the help I need.
so I read a lot about somatics and like how that can help with trauma. So I started doing like some somatic exercises that were really helping. So I was like, okay, let's take this a step further and get into therapy with somatics. And I felt like I was just getting really overstimulated a lot, and I just wasn't having a good time. And I'm like, it's now or never. I need to get into this. And like, it was manifesting so heavily in my body that I was like, I thought I had what is it, fibromyalgia, whatever.
Fibromyalgia.
I was convinced because my whole body just ached and hurt all the time, and that was probably the biggest thing was the way it was manifesting in my body that I couldn't. I was getting sick. I was like
Yep.
throwing up all the time. Like I had to, and so I literally have de-thawed since then.
Trauma does crazy things to your body, and it could even be years down the road. I mean, I know for me, I suffered a lot of my trauma when I was a child, and still to this day, I will wake up in night terrors, and I will wake up in hot sweats, and I will go through these phases where I'm just like, nobody touch me. I don't need to be touched.
Yes.
Like I am feeling so like my body is like repelling everything from me because this trauma came out of nowhere. It could be the farthest thing from my mind, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden your whole body is like in shock again, and you're like, "What? Why? Why? I thought I was done feeling this way." So
I
I know,
relate to that so heavily.
yes, I know.
It's
Just
a cycle.
yes, trauma is crazy. I mean, even anxiety and how it builds up in your body as well. I didn't realize I was having severe anxiety attacks for years until later on, and I finally got the help I needed. They're like, this is anxiety. This is what you're feeling." And I was like, no one has ever explained that to me before. Like,
Right?
yes. So I feel definitely when you're getting the help that you truly need and someone is like actively helping you, things get better. But I feel some of those trauma responses never go away.
And they're scary sometimes, but I'm telling you, somatics has changed my life. I literally, it helps. So for me, because we're like, the funny part is we haven't even started the actual trauma part of therapy. We are just working on regulating my system right now because I I couldn't handle it.
Yes.
So it's really funny that I'm haven't even started the full trauma part.
Well, and
But
then even when you get into it, you'll probably uncover stuff that you completely forgot about, and your body didn't forget about, like a certain kind of trauma that had happened to you that your brain blocked out so much of you for you that when you're going through oh my gosh, I'm getting tongue tied. I apologize.
you're good. You're good.
So when you're going through therapy and you can really uncover things, you're like, I completely blocked this out. like my brain hid this from me, but my body's still experienced this trauma that I forgot about. I know for me personally, it was like going through and talking things out, and I was like, I forgot about this experience, and then I have to like relive those emotions and like write it out to be like, oh my god, my brain was hiding this from me for a reason, and I
Mhm.
forgot about it until now.
That's what's so crazy. That's the part that gets me. It's like I didn't know I felt that way. I didn't know like that was there. Like it's
Yeah,
crazy the things
yeah,
that it hides from you. But I also get so frustrated when my body does just like the work for me. When it does like get all when I'm like I'm not upset right now. I don't want to be upset right now. Don't make me seem upset. Like my
yes,
body just does it. My voice automatically, and I'm like it's hard.
yes.
It's hard, but the more somatics I do, the better I've actually been at it. So,
Can you describe somatics for me and just some of our listeners so they don't like? For me, I don't personally know what somatics are, so if you could explain that, that would be
oh,
fantastic.
it's basically yoga for the trauma body. Like there's spots that that in your body you hold a lot of trauma in from like past experiences, and they're just like the crazy. They look a lot of them look silly, like where you're just like rolling on this like your hip bone back here, which that bone back there, like when you massage or do like instantly for me relieves anxiety. Like there's a spot. I don't know. So there's like this somebody called the Workout Witch, and I did like her 30-day boot camp, and it's just like these 20-minute somatic exercises. They're like
Okay,
yoga, but like deeper. Like I don't. They're weird. So like one example I use of somatics when I'm like out in the world, and I get like triggered or I get like overwhelmed is literally you look that way, like until you feel better, and like something about it like instantly makes me feel better. Or
that's
there's something
amazing.
called yeah, it's and it worked. The other day, I was not even thinking about it, and I did that a few times, and I just got up right out of bed and started doing the dishes. I was like, and I had no thought. There was no thought like of my brain telling me to do like, well, probably somewhere, but like it was weird. Or there's like something called the VU where you just like like for a while, 3 different times, and like the vibration is amazing. And that's what they say, like the rocking, they do a lot of rocking because that kid's like the most something. There's science
Yeah,
or something behind
yeah,
it. But yeah, it's just basically the release of trauma in the body that you've held on to.
that is amazing.
And
I'm
it's
gonna have to look into that myself.
do it. I recommend the Workout Witch. She has a bunch of different ones
Okay,
that you can do, and hers have been amazing. I also struggle with no, I can't think of it. Executive function. That's what it is. I
okay,
struggle with that a lot too. So that's another. So like I get excited to do it. It feels good. I love doing it, but do I want to get up and go do it?
yes.
No. And so like I do it like a week, and I'm like, this is great, new me. It's not, but
It's that
there are some
motivation
things.
that you need. Like you're like, yes, I know this will feel good, but just getting there is the
Hmm.
problem. I
Yep.
know me personally, I know I struggle with going to the gym and like trying to get healthy. And my things is like once I go to the gym, I know it'll be good and I'll come home and I'll sleep great.
Yeah.
Getting into the car to drive to the gym sometimes is the hardest thing because you're just like, oh, this is going to be really hard. I'm going to push myself, and I know I feel better afterwards. But right now, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to.
I always tell myself, I'm like, just go there, and then after 10 minutes, if you really want to go home, go home. But I never do. Like, I'm always like, no, I'm here, let's go,
Yeah,
most days. But
yeah,
I started doing Pilates this last year, and I just realized I'm not a gym person. Like, I don't do well at the gym. I'm like,
yeah.
I need a class, and I need that competitiveness, or I won't do anything. So,
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
feel
it's
that.
fun.
I need someone with accountability, but I don't want like other people there. And like I another thing for me, I know I just struggle with like public anxiety. So I think COVID really did that for me, being so indoors. I'm more of a homebody now than I ever was. So leaving my house is such a hard thing for me.
I get that. I
So
get
I
that. I feel
know,
bad.
yeah. So for
My
me, just
boyfriend,
to
like,
get there is hard. But if I have someone with accountability who's like, hey, you're going today, you're getting
you're
this
going.
done, then I'm like, okay, I'll do it because you're making me. I'm going to be mad at you
Yeah.
and I'm going to kick and scream, but I'm going to do it.
Isn't it so funny?
Yes.
No, but maybe you don't like. Maybe there's something else out there that you will actually like and not have to feel like that with. Because I
I
feel
hope
like with
so.
working out, there has to be like I don't know. Because like some of my friends love lifting. I do not
Nope.
whatsoever care for that. But like Pilates, I love and can do all day. But I think it just is all about like because it's not supposed to be a punishment, you know? But it
Hmm.
feels that way. It's
Yes.
supposed to be like good for your body, but it just
Well, and the same thing with therapy. It's supposed to be good for you, but sometimes it's going to feel like punishment because you're like, I just lived through all of this stuff and now I have to relive it again, like, and
well,
like talk
yeah.
about it.
And it's really funny because this is my second, well, I've been in therapy a lot, but like I did therapy 4 or 5 years ago and I had the most amazing therapist, but I was still in active addiction and I never once was there sober. So, and I never fully told the truth about anything because I didn't want the answers.
Yes.
So now going and sitting in there sober, like just, it's sometimes very uncomfortable for me because I was so used to like, oh, let's go take some shots in the bathroom. Well, let's go snort some Xanax in the bathroom. Take like, before I can even begin to talk about my feelings. So
Yes.
like now going and sitting there and like, oh, it's so uncomfortable for me sometimes. But usually we get to like the bottom of things, and by the end, I'm like in a whole new person.
What was it that finally made you like, all right, I am done. Excuse me, drunk. I'm done, and I want to like stop doing drugs and stop hurting myself and like you know what I mean? Because I feel like things with addiction is very much like self harm. It's another form of
Mm-hmm.
self harm, and it's like when did you finally was like I'm done with hurting myself. I need to stop this. Like, was there something that clicked in it for you?
Yeah. So the first time I went to rehab was 2016 or 17. I was wandering the streets of Minneapolis with no shoes on. That's the last thing I remember. But then somehow I ended up in this detox that they would not tell me their name. They just kept like they kept putting shot like giving me shots and they wouldn't give me medicine. And I'm like, I'm gonna withdraw and die. Like I'm off whatever. They didn't care. So the only way they let me out of that facility is if I agreed to go to treatment in Florida. So I did, and I got on a plane and went from Minneapolis to Florida. So yeah, anyways, I went to Florida for my first treatment. I that was like that's what started to get me off of Xanax. I still struggled with benzos because so I got 30 days at that rehab, and I came back to Minnesota, and I went and like sat down for lunch with my family, and I could not talk to them. Like without Xanax, like I couldn't even talk to my family. So that night, I refilled my Xanax prescription and relapsed. That was what I think I was like 25 at that time. Then after that, just like in and out of some detoxes, but just full addiction up until I'm 32 now. 30, I think when I turned 30. I'd had a particularly bad binge. I think what really did it for me is the fact that I did coke with my 18-year-old sister. And that made me feel so bad. Like I had so much guilt over that. I just kept going for days and days. And then I got to the point like where I was so sick, I got sober in my bed in the studio apartment by myself, even after like going to detoxes and treatments. I don't know. I just like had the most so much guilt that I did coke with my 18-year-old sister. I could not get that out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I was also talking to this who was in recovery, so he was always telling me like little things about recovery, and like I wanted his attention so badly that I basically got sober.
Yeah.
Um, and I like wanted to be sober because I wanted him to like be with me. Anyways, I'm glad he's not with me. Like I'm so glad like that worked out. That got me sober somehow. But also
Mm-hmm.
on day 3 of being sober, I was hearing voices. So I was like in my bed, like it was 3 a.m. in the morning. I was going to start a new job in the morning, and I started hearing voices. There was like somebody above me playing an Eddie Murphy comedy skit, him just going pop it, pop it, pop it, pop, skip it, skip it, skip it. The weirdest thing I've ever heard, just on
Right.
repeat for like hours. And then I hear this neighbor like go knock on this neighbor's door, and he's like, "You're passed out drunk, blah blah blah. You woke us all up." And she's like, "Man, no, I didn't." And then they start taking shots together. And then he's like, this is like 9 in the morning now. And he's like, I'm gonna shoot and kill myself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm calling my mom. What do I do, mom? Like, what do I do? She's like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, they're like, she called the cops on us. That dumb B called the. All of a sudden, they're saying I did, and they're singing on guitar and like a full band setup. F you B, we're gonna kill you B, we're gonna rape you B, we're gonna rape your dog, like just over and over and over. And they kept
Yeah.
singing about all of the things I've ever done wrong in the last month. They knew it all. They knew the decor of my apartment. They knew my life, like all of this crazy stuff they're singing about. So I kept trying to find. They kept saying, "Come find me." 215 6. They're making up whatever. So I go knock on every single door. Couldn't find them, and I was sending videos to all of my friends, like of the vents. Don't you hear that? Everyone's like, I don't hear anything. What are you talking about? I'm like, no, you don't hear that?
Yeah.
No. So like finally like 3 p.m. I get a knock on my door. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're here. Finally, I can explain. I didn't call the cops on them. And it's my mom. And she's like, what is going on? Are you on drugs? I'm like, no, I'm 3 days sober. Don't you hear that? Like I was literally standing up on like the table, like to the vents. Like, don't you hear that? Like, no. They're like, no. So they took me to the hospital. And then once I got like hooked up to the IV and it was singing "fuck you, bitch," oh sorry, "f you, bitch," "f you,
That's okay.
b,"
No, you're fine.
all of those things, I was like, oh, none of that was real. Like,
It was just like
so
your
that's
body
the
like tripping you out when you were detoxing. Like your body was just
yeah,
like
yeah.
on a
You can
ride.
hallucinate. Yep.
I did not
You
know that.
completely. Yeah, I didn't know you could do it that bad. Like, I'd heard people, but I'd been like, no. This was
Yeah.
like 10 hours of insanity where nobody could tell me that I wasn't hearing that. Nobody. I was like in the leasing office talking to them, knocking on doors, like, hey, I didn't call the cops on you. They're like, I don't know who you are. I'm like, okay, bye. Like,
Yeah.
so that scared me too.
Yeah.
And then I honestly, when I found sobriety, like everything just was so. I rode the pink cloud for a little bit, is what they call it. Like, this is so amazing being sober. And I'm not going to say I didn't stumble a few times because I did. It took me a while to get to 18 months, is the last technical chip that I got. So, like, it's just crazy. But my boyfriend and I also spent our first year together in addiction, which
Okay.
was also a lot of trauma for both of us. And then now for us to have been together, we celebrated 2 years in January, like sober. Like I honestly could not have like predicted that because of how badly like the using together had become, and the fact that like neither of us have had positive or like we've never seen good healthy relationships, and the fact that we have a good healthy relationship even with that first year of addiction and doing horrible things to each other, like it's crazy.
Right.
And the way that we came together is also crazy to me because we used to run in the same groups of friends. He was on my brother's like football team when he was like, I was like 8, they were probably like 6, and nobody remembered that they were until me and him met on Hinge. And like there were just so many things that had to happen for me and my boyfriend Cole to be where we are now and to have met up again later in
Yeah.
life. Like it blows my mind. I'm
Life is
like,
really crazy like that. Like they throw people into your life and then like they come back and you're like, wait a minute.
yeah. And I'm so glad I didn't end up in that other relationship either. But I'm so glad I met that man to introduce me more to the like, because any other time I'd gone to meetings or anything like that, I would be like, this makes me want to use more, blah, blah, blah. I had a psychic change. I had just a whole change, and I got so addicted to like my life that I wasn't trying to escape it. And that's what they say in the rooms a lot. It's like, it's not the substances, it's you. And
Yeah.
it is. And it was. And like now I just have so much to be grateful. And I mean I always have, but I'm just glad that I'm able to receive it now.
Yes.
Um
Do you feel that you have a better support system now than you used to have in the past?
yeah, I don't hear from like any of those girls. Well, one of them I do, and I'm still really close with, but like a lot of them dropped me like when I got dropped. Like they never heard from them again. Like I had so many friends, and then like a lot of them are still doing it now.
With your support system, who do you feel like right now that you have that has really helped you? And like you feel like now like you have these people behind you and you're able to like move on because you know you have the support system.
Yeah, I have a lot of that, and a lot of that it does come with like AA and stuff. But I have a sponsor that I love dearly. It took, I'll say with sponsorship, if you don't vibe with that person, just move on to the next one, please. Anybody who is stuck in that, because I've gone through sponsors before, and sometimes it could do more damage if it's not the right sponsor for you. So you
Right.
just got to really be mindful of that. And then a lot of people at my work have been really good support systems for me as well, because the work we do is not easy. I work as a navigator for adolescent outpatient.
Okay.
So it's funny. I am amazed that some of these kids are 16, 17 and showing up and wanting to get sober. And like, because me at that age, there was no way in heck you were
Hmm.
ever going to get me to go to IOP. So it's been really healing actually to work with them. It's really helped me.
That's great. That
Yeah.
is amazing that you're finding like different outlets and different things to like help you and like I feel when you have people in your corner who are there to support you, especially with you not having that support for such a long time and you were very much on your own navigating, now that you have people there and like I can, what is the words? I'm so sorry. My brain's going a million miles a minute.
No, no problem. That happens to me all the time.
So with you having more people in your corner and stuff like now, like you're able to heal and have people to back you to make sure you stay on track.
Oh yeah, I just need to be better about asking for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I do. I just need to be better about like knowing my feelings and emotions. I think to ask for help, because I was just talking about the story today of we saw the Gravedigger, the like monster truck.
Okay.
Um, and I used to love Monster Truck. And then I had gotten a T-shirt for this Monster Truck Scarlet Bandit one time, and I wore it to school, and I was so excited because I had them all sign it. And this like girl was like, "That is the ugliest shirt I've ever seen. That's not even cool." And so like this is just an example of how I've always been. I went to the bathroom, turned it inside out, like threw it away or something when I got home, like never spoke of it again. Like didn't tell my mom, didn't tell anybody. And this was like sixth, no, probably like fourth or fifth. But that was just like an example of how I always was. So learning to be open and vulnerable and like ask for help
Yes.
has been a challenge, but it usually pays off, because there's another quote that I did learn this in rehab that I like to say to myself sometimes when I'm like too in my head is like, ain't nobody thinking about you. That's what my therapist used to tell me when I would overthink of like, that one always helps me, because I'm always like, you're right. Nobody's sitting here thinking about how you said that one little thing wrong. Like
Yes.
they're not. They're thinking about what they said. You know what I mean? So like
Yes.
that's something that I always like to, and not in a bad way, because there's a lot of people thinking and hoping and being nice to me, but like I just mean in a way of like the little anxiety voice that is
Yes.
unnecessary.
I think that when you struggle with anxiety, you feel like there's a lot of eyes on you and they're watching you and like how are you going to react to this? But in reality, like
Mhm.
you said, no one cares. Really, no one cares. It's just you being your
No.
biggest critic and thinking that, that little monster or is in your ear saying like, "Oh, everyone hates you. Like, you're
Yes.
so stupid." But in reality, like that's just you. That's like
Yeah.
you trying to get out of your head and be like, "No, like no one cares."
It's so true. So true
Yep.
though.
Um, is there anything else you were looking to share or that you had feelings about or that you're looking forward to do in the future?
I'm just really thankful for this whole process, because I've never done it before. So I think I've like mentioned all of the main points about myself. I am just looking forward to like growing in my sobriety, because last year looked so different than the year before that. So I'm just excited what the next year will bring, and I just keep putting myself up out there the best that I can, and it's
Mhm.
paid off. Like I said yes to this. I don't know. I'm just trying to say yes to things that push me outside my comfort zone, and it's
Yes.
been very rewarding for
Yes, it is.
sure.
It can be very rewarding to be as vulnerable and like to be open to yourself and to reveal things about yourself. All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode. Bailee, where would you like people to find you if you want to be found and ask more questions or to reach out about your magazine you're starting?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook as Bailee, Bailee. Last name Schmidtke, Schmidtke, and that should just be any of my Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. And then for the magazine that I founded, it's called Brats. So on Instagram, it's brats.mag, I believe. No, brats.magazine.
Okay,
That's what it is.
perfect. And if you would like to reach out about sharing your story on the podcast, you can reach out to me at sorry for trauma dumping podcast at gmail.com. It's really long, but you won't forget it. We're also on TikTok, Instagram. We have Facebook group, Facebook page, all of that stuff. Or if you know someone that you think they should share their story, go ahead and send this video to them to see if they would want to reach out about that too. And that will wrap up this episode. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And I
Of
really
course.
hope someone can listen to your story and like reflect about it and maybe seek the help that they're finally wanting to get as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.